Right on. Hey, Jeff, thanks for joining me on episode two. This is the second episode ever of what is currently titled the Founders Only podcast. Title still pending. So when this gets uploaded, it will be called that. But I don't know. People watching this 25 years from now may find that the title has changed. So glad to have you on. Quick introduction, just sort of like my side, of who you are. I put out the bat signal 2 weeks ago, telling people that I was going to start writing a podcast. And I got a healthy amount of response that I'm really excited about. And yours was the one that got me the most excited about. I don't want to spoil too much, but yours got me the most excited about like a whole new world. What would become a whole new world for me, and out of like 55 responses. So thank you for getting me excited about like a new thing I didn't know existed. And I'll let you go and tell people as much as you feel like about what you're up to.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. And when you're on episode 1000, I'd love to maybe be a guest again when this is big time. So, by way of background, I am in Houston, Texas. I am a husband, father, and entrepreneur. And the topic that really resonated within your newsletter, if you can call it that. I know we were talking before this, and it's taken the title does not do it justice, but I replied with this work I'm doing in the world of concrete leveling. And so Texas Slab Guys was founded in 2025, really second half of 2025, and we had 4 months of good production, and we're excited about the opportunity in front of us in 2026, and happy to share, most of that on this podcast. But great to meet you in person. I know we've talked a number of times, but good to see you in person.
Yeah, I'm excited to be doing this. It's interesting that I actually have, before I started this podcast, I recorded one episode of a podcast that was sort of like a test, a pilot, if you will, of a totally different type 2 years ago. And that guest, who I did not know at the time, and I are really close friends now. We talk all the time, so you never know. I'm so interested in what you're doing. The concrete leveling. If anybody is rolling their eyes right now, I think that one, we've got an episode of Chris Corner's podcast for you to watch, because they do a really good job of stepping through the ins and outs of the business, which is really exciting, right? Less excited about the detail of how concrete works personally, but having to learn it, because I'm also dabbling in this same thing, because you ignited an interesting fire in me. But why did you land on that? You didn't spend years in the industry. How did that happen?
Yeah, great question. I wish I had a great story to tell. I, at a high level, love service businesses, and I'm a big fan of Chris Corner's podcast, and he focuses on two real key themes: service businesses and AI, two things that resonate personally with what I like to spend my time in around, and what I found some of my aptitudes are. And so I looked at a number of variety of businesses: water filtration business, mold remediation, fire remediation or fire damage remediation, and concrete. And the concrete was the one that really just moved the quickest, and we saw some early wins. And so I think as I started to study the market a little bit more, I realized that concrete as a whole, if it were a country of its own, concrete that's being poured everywhere, it would be the second highest emitting carbon product in the world. And so in the US alone, Texas accounts for about roughly 20% of new concrete being poured. And in particular, Houston, where I'm sitting, is the highest concrete per capita in North America. And so as I look through optionality of potential service businesses, the kind of business that maybe puts the average Joe to sleep, but you can create a real definable process around what you're trying to do. Concrete really jumped off the page. And so I sit here maybe 6 months ahead of you. I'm far from an expert. Maybe I can learn a lot from you on this call. Actually, I think I could. But so those are a couple of reasons that I landed on concrete. I wasn't necessarily looking for it. I was evaluating a couple of options. And then as I was narrowing down those options, the sheer magnitude of the market was something that was a good tailwind for concrete leveling, which in essence is just concrete repair. Instead of pouring a new slab of concrete, these efforts are meant to save and restore existing slabs. So you're providing both a value in the sense of you're spending less money, but the product itself results in a very similar end product of that of new concrete.
Okay, so when you referenced the carbon emitting part of this, where that fits in is that if you can raise awareness about leveling and repair, and therefore pour less concrete as a result of that, because you've helped if you spend 10 years doing this and you can help a couple thousand jobs get repaired instead of replaced, it makes a dent on the carbon emissions, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so I'm less virtue signaling that, hey, what I'm doing is the effort saving the environment, but more so qualifying the sheer magnitude of the size of the market. And there is an angle where we can say, hey, we are helping out with the environment. I don't think that's insincere or dishonest to say that. The key value drivers, I think, are the lower price point and the very similar end result for customers. But yes, there is a benefit to the environment in doing this as well.
The magnitude that you describe is obviously so much smaller than software, right? This is, software is infinitely scalable. You can, do it worldwide. Did you spend a lot of time before you jumped into this, or before you even started looking at these services businesses, in your head, were you already thinking about doing something that was, instead of infinitely scalable, but future-proof? Is that the goal?
That's a good question. The philosophy personally that I hold is I'm all in on AI and things that I think AI cannot touch. And so I am under the impression that concrete itself, the work is relatively easy. Generally speaking, you don't need licensing or permitting. It's, I joked on the phone with you, it's so easy a crackhead can do it. And a crackhead will do just about anything to make sure that they continue getting their crack. And so I think there's some natural moats around concrete itself, and AI replacing the jobs of pouring concrete. Long term, maybe there's a possibility, but I don't think that's likely in our lifetime. Software itself is infinitely scalable, but with the development of these generative AI models just over the past 18, 24 months, this is recorded in February 2026. In the past 2 years alone, we've seen a bigger leap in technology in the world of AI than I'd argue any other time period recorded in the history of man. And so software as a service, or just software as a whole, I think is becoming more of a commodity. And anyways, that's not necessarily why the path I want to go down on this, but I do think there are some some benefits of leaning into these like old worlds and using new technologies, but also still being bullish about those new technologies and other different avenues of my life. And so that's how I was trying to apply maybe a personal philosophy into the kind of old world of concrete.
Totally. Yeah, we are. So I'm for those people that I haven't told yet. I'm following your footsteps. I'm basically 6 months behind and just sort of working on the same thing because I feel the same way. I feel exactly the same way. And the biggest eye-opening things to me, like obviously learning all about concrete, is like I wasn't even creative enough to pick a different industry. I just said it. But
Me
the
either.
most fascinating,
Me either.
yeah, for me, it's like the most fascinating thing has been talking to these existing businesses that are doing millions of dollars in revenue and looking at their software stack, because it's easy in my circles to think about how everything is better with AI, and it's just a given. Like when you talk to tech founders, it's just the norm. It's every conversation. It just goes without saying that everything could be improved with AI. And yet you see these multi-million-dollar businesses, the AI just hasn't made it there yet. They haven't gotten around to it. And for me, it's actually, I think, the more juicy opportunity, just because of the way that my silly brain works, is help them out. So I'm back. I'm like already leaning back into selling them software, which was not the intention at all. But it's in a way, it just feels right to help those, like kind of my, I think I told you this on the phone, but my theory for the last 3 years, roughly 3 or maybe a little over that now, has been that AI for normies is still a thing, and will be like one of the last software things that's not so easily replicated, because we are extremely biased by who we talk to about the adoption of AI. Everywhere you look, I talk to a few dozen people a week, and there are legitimate business owners that haven't even bothered with it. They haven't touched ChatGPT, not even the free version, right? So, yes, if you can build it yourself, you absolutely should. But I think that for people that are watching that are like, I'm not doing concrete, what am I supposed to do? I think that one of the options is get to know the concrete people so that you can help them expand their operations, double their speed with AI. So just a thought for anybody who's like, how do I serve the old world without being in it, right? Because I think that is an option for 5 years. So
Yeah.
What do you think about
if
that?
I riff with you on that, I think that's a great idea, because let's take concrete leveling as the use case here. There's one CRM platform for concrete leveling, and everybody uses them. They set their price in $50, kind of a PEPM model per seat, and they just do basic functionality, CRM, sales funnel, payments, and it's all the things that you can build vibe coding one weekend, integrate with Stripe, etc. This company is doing, from what I backed into, 50 million ARR based on when I just did a high level study of the market in the US. And they're the only competitor would be like a Jobber, who's an industry agnostic type CRM. But so to your point, whether it's concrete leveling or something entirely different, in an industry that is a laggard in AI adoption, then there are a whole lot of exciting plays where you can create efficiencies at a much lower price point and replace incumbent providers. And that's like a universal strategy that I think over the next 5-10 years, kind of to your point, there's going to be a whole lot of arbitrage opportunities just for that alone. And yeah, your switching costs will be high, But John, if I know anything about you, I think you're a top 1% salesman. And so if anybody can figure it out, I think you can. And then it's just finding a place where you like to play and sit and overlap with certain personality types in the industry. And so, yeah, I agree. I think that's a very creative approach to marrying these two topics of like AI and like, old world industry that has not adopted or even looked at these new technologies.
Yes. Yeah, and I think I've gotten, just over the last few years, I've gotten a little better at hiding the vegetables, so to speak. So when I say AI tools for normies, I'm trying to make it seem like they're not using AI, right? So when I do my marketing, I'm not like AI tool thing, right? They just like it better when they put in for example, we have a practice interview, something I've talked about in the newsletter a couple times. Like we built this thing that, helps people practice for their job interview. And it's almost entirely grocery, fast food, retail jobs that people are using it for. And they aren't going to ChatGPT for help. They could, but they aren't. And they are going to be scared away by the idea of a robot helping them. So just kind of hide the vegetables and like make it a highly efficient tool. Add some load time where none is needed, and make it feel like there's some software stuff happening, right? So that's like what I'm recommending. Like when I say like get into these old world industries and help them, use AI to help them. I don't mean give them an AI tool. I don't think that's the right move. I think it's just use it yourself to make them more efficient in a way that they're more comfortable. But so that's that there. Now we've taken care of the people who don't want to do concrete, plumbing, pest and termite, air conditioning, right? But what about the people who are hearing this and like, hold on, maybe I could try this out? Because that was me. That was me 2 weeks ago, right? I was like, oh my God, this sounds so fun. How do I get in that? So for those people, they're probably thinking, I'm not a concrete expert. How could I make $1 selling concrete? You care to share any of the sauce there?
Yeah, careful what you ask for. Your advice is worth what you pay for it. But yeah, I initially started selling this just on a price per square foot before I did any sort of training or anything. And I went through the process and got under contract to buy a direct competitor. I still technically have a contract to acquire a competitor here in Houston. That has since gone sideways, and I'd love to save the deal. I don't know how likely that is from happening, and to be realistic, but I went and just monitored a job site. During my negotiation with this business owner where I was going to buy him out, he just invited me to come look at a couple jobs. And so I went and looked at a couple jobs. I'm not a mechanically inclined person by way of background, and have worked white collar jobs my whole career, professional career. I started out shoveling gravel when I was like 13, but I'm not like a tough guy who you typically think of when you think of like a GC or what have you. And so
I am. I'll have you know, I'm a tough guy. No.
I can. Hey, you can wear it. I believe it. But yeah, so I just started out by observing and asking a lot of questions. Naturally, I think I have a pretty curious mind, and I just asked a million questions, and if they didn't feel comfortable answering, I wouldn't apply any pressure. And so after asking every question I could think of, I went up to HMI, and HMI is like Hydro Mudjacking Industries. They're up in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, and they're the leading and premier producer of the raw materials that are used in concrete leveling, but also the CapEx equipment, the trailers. They offer a number of turnkey solutions to enable entrepreneurs who are want to own their own assets and perform these services in their local markets. And they have a variety of product offerings ranging from vans to 30-foot trailers, et cetera, depending on the work you're being done. Major shout out to HMI. I think they're a wonderful partner, and they continue to make themselves available to me to continue to ask questions.
Wow, nice.
But yeah, so point being, I went up to one of their trainings. They do a couple, I think 1 or 2 every quarter. It was, $1,000 to go do the training. It was a fully intensive 2-day course. So you had to get a flight, a hotel, rent a car. You fly into Milwaukee, then drive 90 minutes north. I mean, you're basically on the Canadian border. So going from Houston up to Canada essentially was like a 5-6 hour trip for me from door to door. Those are, in the big scheme of things, very inexpensive ways to become more familiar with the industry, and you're giving a lot of your time, you're dedicating quite a bit of attention, asking questions to folks you can find, and then to the degree that you're serious, paying a couple $1,000s to go sit down with folks who have done this for the past 50 years and get hands-on experience, both in terms of training and using the actual equipment in a warehouse, but also understanding the second layer of detail in running a concrete leveling business that they help support and facilitate.
Yeah, that shows a lot of dedication. I didn't realize just how in deep you were. Quick clarifying question. Were you under contract to buy the business before you had done any of this? Or was that after you had already sort of worked on some of this stuff?
Yeah, so my goal, 2025, I had a goal to buy a business and be under contract. This was like not a New Year's resolution, but early January, my wife and I were talking about getting a service business under contract before the end of summer. And so call that end of August. And so first quarter, I was chasing this water filtration company that I'm an active customer of. The owner unfortunately passed away. It's a really cool local water filtration business, whole home water backup, and was trying to make strides there. It just didn't work. And so then I took to, in Q2, the strategy evolved from, okay, if water filtration isn't going to happen, then I need to expand my scope. And I downloaded off Google. I use a tool called Outscraper, and I scrape every service business in the Houston market. And then I filtered by, on those phone numbers, which of them are mobile numbers. And then I sent out like thousands of texts over the month of April and was like, hey, just a total like 160 character. Hey, John, insert first name. Like, I've been following your business, ABC Plumbing, and I'm super impressed with it. Have you ever thought about selling it? If so, I'm local and I'd love to buy it. And so you send out thousands of these texts. I, for a short time, got banned from sending iMessages. Apple I had to call and appeal Apple and talk to them and go through like a re-verification because the platform I was using wasn't Apple approved, even though it said it was. And so I got back on Apple. I built like a text relay through a different tool. The point being, I ended up getting probably like 200 or so people that were like, oh yeah, I'd sell. And then I went through the qualifying process. Hey, how much revenue have you done? And so that got us down to about 40. And then I sat down with probably like 15 of them. And so I didn't have a formal process, but I was thoughtful in my approach and where I was fishing. And concrete leveling was one of the places that hit, and it ended up going under contract. And so I did not set out looking for concrete. I just found it in my efforts to find a service business to buy.
You didn't want to accept the compliment before, but I'll say it again. I think you're a genius. I think you're a genius.
No.
This is not like, first of all,
you need to get to know me a little bit better, but that's kind. Thank you.
this actually sounds like a very formal process. You said I didn't have a formal process, but man, if nothing else, it was robust. Wow. The groundwork that you laid so that in the near future, dozens or hundreds of founders can sort of work out something more future-proof than what they're working on. This is an incoming crisis subject for the newsletter. Is this like, I think my business has 2 years left technologically. Now what? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've recommended to a couple friends in crisis that, I've recommended okay, look, these SaaS businesses that are your current B2B customers, they're going to want to build their own thing soon. Mm-hmm. So maybe what you could do is go ahead and start being the team that builds their internal tool instead of just continually selling them your tool. They're going to they want to own the tool. They want to self-host the tool. Why not pivot to help them be the one to actually build their own? Because you have the experience. The tools are everybody's game. So why not use that experience to build them a self-hosted solution and then let them pay you like an agency? So things like that, right? But mm-hmm. I think that I need to start recommending to these people that they start taking future-proofing seriously. And maybe it's sending out 1,000 text messages and seeing what businesses around would sell and how well they're doing. That's unbelievable. Did you use once the data started coming in and you had a couple hundred or 100 responses that were like, sure, here's my revenue and here's how many customers. Like, how did you organize it? I have to know. What I'm imagining and what you did are probably very different.
Yeah, it was in Excel. I had to send anywhere from 100 to 200 texts a day. And so I would load and set a time to send on a weekly cadence. And then my response rate was anywhere from 5 to 10%. Got a lot of
amazing
jokers who were asking just outrageous things. The hardest thing was initially building trust with those who replied and expressed skepticism. And, how'd you get this phone number? Who is this? It's hey, I'm Jeff. I'm from Houston. I've been reading about your business. And at the same, I didn't, there's a degree of fabrication here because yes, I was reading about your business in a list of 10,000 other businesses. But if somebody started to reply, then I would go to their website and be oh, cool, carpet cleaning.
Y'all how cold outreach works.
Yeah. That's interesting, I guess. Y'all steam carpets and y'all, I guess that's a good business. Tell me about it. And so, I think carpet steaming actually is a really good business.
Okay,
as I
good.
Joke about it. But so there went the funnel, and so 200 text, and then the discernment on taking people at their word was something that I had to learn the hard way. Folks said that they had $1 million in revenue, and then I'd go sit down and meet with them, and they'd be well, I'm actually only at $250,000 of revenue this year, but I'm going to end this year at 500, and next year I'm totally going to be at $1 million. And so I, for better or for worse, just ended up in a couple positions where I was just gosh, maybe I was too excited to sit down with you. And so, that evolved into a short list, and then I just worked the short list, and the concrete leveling was just a thing that I couldn't really get away from. I wasn't necessarily trying to pursue it. I really liked this mold remediation company. I think there's an opportunity where I forget if the difference between inelastic and elastic. So further proof that I'm not genius. But I think at high income households, the pricing that's associated with products health related is, if it's $10 or $10,000, I don't think it matters. And so I really liked this health kind of play for optional type items, and then plan to only target the high income folks. And by way of background, my son had a really bad mold reaction, and so there was some personal experience with this stuff that I felt strongly about spreading the message, and I felt I could be an evangelist in this market of health and mold remediation, etc.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out. I kept trying to force it, and the concrete leveling thing was just like, I was like, okay, like I need to hedge my bets here. Like I'm going to continue moving these three in parallel, and the concrete one was like the most natural. And I'd be like, okay, well, I guess I need to go see a job. When can I do that? And they're like, well, we're in Westview, a couple miles from my house. Like on Friday, like, are you free at 3? And I'm just like, crap. Yes, I am free at 3. Like in 2 days. Like, yeah, I'll be there. And his name is Alex. Alex I think he's a great guy, former veteran, has served our country, done this for 5 years or so, and was doing, $500,000 to $600,000 in top line revenue. And so, I think he has a good model, and I just couldn't get away from the concrete piece. And so, not that I was necessarily like not wanting to do it, but it just, there's a saying, I guess, I recently heard this, money, money's like water. It just follows the path of least resistance.
Yes.
And this was kind of like a path of least resistance. And I wasn't trying to throw up blockers, but it was just like, boom, door open, boom, door open. And anyways, I don't believe in luck. I'm a man of faith. And so I think it's been a huge blessing to be given this opportunity. And it's something I'm still really excited about. But just kind of a bit serendipitous saying it out loud. It's like, I was looking at all these other areas, and these doors kept opening. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll walk through here. And, I kind of ended up where I am now, not begrudgingly, but it just kind of happened as fate would have it.
It's a tale as old as time. It's a great story, and it happens in every aspect of life. You see these stories, right? It's, in business and in anything. Like people find a new church have similar stories all the time. I kept going to this one that's closer to my house, but I kept meeting people at the pickleball court that were from this other one. Whatever. There's like the story happens in a lot of different ways, and like sometimes these stories in business turn out to be like really big pivots. Like Slack was desperate to make this video game work that they were building.
Yeah.
And everybody's just really liked their internal chat tool.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing. That is such a great correlation. It's like a total pivot, and
they stopped fighting it. They stopped fighting it. Right. Same thing with Loom. Loom was building some lame tool, and everybody liked their little video explainer demo thing that they were doing, and that became the business. And now they sold to Atlassian for a couple $1 billion. So I'm curious about your
poor guys.
How many?
I said hate when that happens. Poor guys.
Yeah, I know. Now they just have a job. Tell me about your like the way you arrange your life right now. This sounds like an awful lot of work, and from 2 weeks of messing around with it, I can say that it is. It seems like a lot of work, and you're are you still doing more than just the concrete?
Okay. Yeah, I have my hands in a couple of different pots, earning money in 3 different avenues, and I'm building Texas Slab Guys being one of those 3, and it probably represents only like 20% of my income, but probably about 50% of my time. And so, that in addition to this, I'm building out a nonprofit type consulting deal. I just sent out a first contract for that, but it's ideated from the Chris Corner podcast and the WIOA funding Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And essentially, it's an incentive at the federal level, funded through appropriations to entrepreneurs in different states to create more trade workers in your state. And so there's a major shortage of blue collar workers, and each state looks differently. Truck drivers and electricians are the top two in Texas, and there's a list of like 130 different jobs that are on there. But essentially the idea is that you can partner with nonprofits or equivalents that are taking, in this instance, shout out to Good Works Collective, very cool organization, Dave Tenhave, CEO. I've known him for over a decade and met him originally through church. But they take ALICE, asset light, income constrained, but employed people, and they train them up into higher earning jobs. And the idea of this funding is that the federal, through the state, Texas Workforce Commission, TWC, will give Dave's organization, up to 15 grand per person that they elevate. And so it's a cool deal where, the state is giving funding out to create a better workforce, and they're incentivizing local entrepreneurs and nonprofits to go out and build the infrastructure needed to create, train, educate, and eventually place these workers. And so by design, I'm trying to get a better appreciation for WIOA, and the idea is that you can then take those same learnings and duplicate it for the world of concrete in a different form, flavor, fashion. And so then you can have a fully vertical a path, multiple revenue streams for the same concrete vertical, whether you're servicing homes or educating people that want to drive big concrete trucks, which you need a special license for, I think. And so you're kind of tapping into a couple of different areas for growth. And so anyways, those are the four areas, or I guess I have those are the two areas I touched on. And then I also am involved in two other software companies, one of which that I founded, and it's payments oriented.
Wow. The WIOA thing, that sounds like a really worthy use of your time. It sounds like a really good idea. But, and I have proof of this, there's only so many hours in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you arrange this? How does it work? It's people are always so fascinated with the way that Elon Musk does it. And you're basically on the same level. So I want to hear about it.
Man, that's a really high compliment to say I'm on the same level as Elon. I don't know if that's true. I love his philosophy, though, of when you're trying to build something new, if you're not having, you want to reduce a 100-step process to 3 steps. If you're not taking out too much and having to add 10% back in to fix the major gaps that you created, then you're not taking out enough. And so I love how he just challenges the status quo. It's kind of you give somebody 6 months to clean their house, they'll take 6 months. Right. But if you say in-laws are coming in 15 minutes, I bet you can get 80% of your house cleaned up in 15 minutes.
Right,
and,
right. That's funny.
And so one thing that I really appreciate is folks who operate and act with urgency in all that they do. And that, in my mind, is a key factor of qualification where, it's kind of silly. I was reading a book to my son. It's by Dr. Seuss, The Places You'll Go. And there's this book where it's the waiting place, and people that sit around and wait. And people wait for a yes, or they wait for a no. They wait for somebody to come give them a contract. They wait for whatever. They wait for the sign to turn green, and you can just go out and do things, and you can make things happen. And this other philosophy I have of leaders bring the weather, and whether it's culturally within a company or culturally within a family or culturally within, a peer group that you hang out with. Like, leaders bring the weather, and urgency and like optimism are must-haves in my mind if you want to go out and accomplish things. And so, by way of background, I don't know. I don't think I'm on the same level as Elon. That's kind of you to say. I do think that he has inspired the way that I go about and think about trying to solve different problems, and just doing it in like the radically different and like quickest way possible. And concrete leveling would be an example of that, where it's like, hey, well, you need to buy $100,000 trailer, then you can go out and sell jobs. And I'm just like, well, like, what if I didn't buy a $100,000 trailer and I just started running Facebook ads? Like, what would happen? Like, well, you couldn't service to work. It's like, yeah, I know, but like, could I sell it? It's like there's a 200 BBB contractors doing the work in Houston. Like, I bet one of them might want to do it, but like, what if like I just sold it and then had somebody else fulfill it? Like, is there any other kind of business model that operates that way? And they're like, no, you can't. I talk to peers and they're like, no, you can't do that. I still have peers that call me, and don't say nice things like, hey, you're just the guy that sells leads. I'm like, well, kind of, but not really. But so that's
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily answering your question. Maybe you've been able to pick this up, but I'm not the kind of guy that just like sits around and watches TV.
Right.
And so
I think that, so first of all, the TV thing, perfect. Exactly what we need to talk about for a second. So obviously you're aware, so the comparison to Elon is because you're actually doing it, right? So everybody reads his book, reads his tweets and get mad or whatever. And, people in our world, especially like people that read the newsletter, talk to me about this kind of thing all the time. The excuse for everyone is that there's not enough hours in the day, and yet there's Elon, right?
mm-hmm.
So people can examine the way he does it by reading his books and watching interview shows. But obviously you're aware that the amount of people that actually put any part of that into practice, such as your in-laws scenario, the amount of people that do that is, it's like zero. It's like none, right? So, I mean, amazing job for actually like learning that it's possible should, for most people, be the last thing that was needed. Now that they know it's possible, they could just apply some of these principles to their life and get urgent, cut down, trim the fat, and it's just not that common. And it's funny, as an investor in a few startups, I've looked for that quality. That is something that's more important to me than, I mean, it's obviously more important than the idea. The idea will change next month. If the founders seem like the type of person who just like learns the way that things get done without being told how they get done, and just like applies it, those people are always going to win. And it doesn't matter at what. If they have your money, they're going to make sure that you have the best possible chance of 10xing that.
Mm-hmm.
Huge for you, and really cool. It's good to get to talk to people like you. I'm really curious though, because you use the in-laws thing, like the in-laws are coming over emergency. Off the top of your head, has anything like that happen in any of your businesses where you're just like, the in-laws will be here in 15 minutes. We have to clean 80% of our house. Does anything like that happen?
Yeah, both professionally and personally. In-laws example hasn't literally happened, but there's been quite literally, we need to clean the house very quickly type stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I originally learned this like rule of urgency in an entrepreneurship class at the University of Tennessee, and the idea was like, hey, if you need to do something and it takes less than 5 minutes, then you need to do it immediately. And if you don't do it immediately, then you're wasting more brain power and you're creating more exhaustion and anxiety by like saying like, okay, write it down, I'm going to do this later, and then thinking like, okay, I need to remember to do it, and then maybe you remember to do it, maybe you don't, but when you finally remember like, oh crap, I didn't do that thing, like then you're expending so much more energy than had you just gone and like flipped your laundry or whatever the thing is. And so that is not necessarily like a real world example, but yeah, there's no shortage. I try to operate in that window of, can I do this like immediately or right now? And not in the sense that that's justification to do it, half-ass, or do it in a way that's not thoughtful, or do it in a way that isn't evaluating all the factors that you can within a short period of time, but more of just taking an iterative approach on everything. When I launched ProntoPay, my first company, I delayed the launch probably by a quarter more than I needed to because I wanted things to be perfect. And going at this a second time, and in addition to all the lessons learned, like the best feedback on product can be only in production from real customers. And so it's better, in my opinion, now compared to where it was 5 years ago, is that once you have anything that moderately resembles a product that's like somewhat okay to be in front of somebody, like put it in front of them, and put it in front of them immediately, and put it in front of as many people as possible in a way that you can like clearly discern what your next steps are. And I would spend hours like talking product roadmap, this feature and that feature, and planning things out for like 2 years. And then we like got the product out there, and it like totally flipped everything. And so I know I'm not giving you a specific example, but just kind of those philosophies of like getting things out more quickly and just living in those iterations and being comfortable in ambiguity is a place where I don't tense up and struggle. And so I naturally invite those environments around myself by the way that I operate and position myself. And I know that a lot of people are not that way. And so, I have to find probably the most realistic example I can give is I push things in our family. My wife, we have 2.5 kids, a third coming in June, and so I operate kind of like that, where things are murky or not defined, but like I kind of have a gut feel on where they're going to go. And my wife is like total planner. Like we got married and she sent me an Excel file like 20 years out. Here's our game plan. Here's when we're buying cars. Here's when we're doing this. Here's when we're doing that. And so there's a natural conflict that her and we're a great team, but we work through frequently where it's like, Jeff, like, come on, you need to think through this thing. And I'm like, I am thinking through it, but like I'm thinking through about like in a completely different way than you were thinking through. And like there's excitement for me in the unknown and ambiguity and the opportunity for things to change. And she does not share that. So like naturally that creates friction, which is probably the most realistic example, but we're still a great team. She's a great teammate to have.
That's awesome. You're ready when something pops up, when a challenge pops up. You're ready to just do the first couple things. It's funny because it feels like it should be a teachable lesson. And yet, all of the students that are going into Y Combinator or Techstars or something like that, all these like young entrepreneurs are being told, they've watched the YouTube videos, they've read the blogs and books about moving fast and breaking things, and yet here's this unteachable lesson of what it really means to just launch, right? Your version of it very recently was just like calling people to sell them concrete, putting up Facebook ads and getting on the phone to sell concrete. That should be teachable. Like there should be a way to actually have young entrepreneurs understand like it just feels so teachable. I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't appear to be. You just need to like start doing the stuff, and then in your life and like your personal life, I'm this way. You mentioned that you know there's like excitement in the unknown. Well, that's because you know what you'll do if the unknown occurs. You'll just start chipping away at it right away. Like you'll just start making calls, and you'll fly to Wisconsin and go to the Canadian border, and like you'll just like do this stuff, right? And not everybody thinks that way, just naturally, but boy, does that feel teachable. Just not sure how to go about it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. You know, it's kind of like in corporate America, it's like meetings about future meetings.
Boy,
It's kind of like, you know, you can have 10 people standing around talking about something, but like, why have we not done this? Kind of mentality. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people want to say that they want to act that way, but a lot of people are wired, and there's nothing wrong with this, but wired in a way that they find comfort in routine, and that's a security blanket for them, which isn't a bad thing, right? Like, we wouldn't want accountants to operate the way that I do.
right,
right? Like
right,
there's
right,
there,
right.
there's some natural shortcomings where engineers maybe like you're building civil engineer building a bridge. Like you don't want them to just be like, oh, hey, they were out of steel, so we used aluminum. Like basically
keep
the
moving,
same
baby.
thing. Yeah, keep
Yeah.
moving. Like so.
Yeah.
I I don't know what that ultimately means. I do think that, to go back to Elon, building things is kind of like chewing glass and staring out in the abyss. And I just
Right.
love that saying because you get all the problems that like no one wants to deal with. And that could be like because they're too proud to like go out and like, you know, haul things in a trailer or whatever, like in concrete, or it's like, there's just like there's uncertainty at every step, and so chewing glass, like hard things and unknown items, like constantly that you're being faced with, and it takes I think a weird person, like I'd say I'm pretty weird, to enjoy living in those living in those types of scenarios.
Yeah. You know, I want to end with this. Everybody's answer is going to be different. And in today's newsletter that went out this morning, I wrote that we have pre-selective proclivities as founders. We have pre-selective proclivities that inherently make us bad at getting help because we are the solvers.
Mm-hmm.
We take problems in and chew them up, right? So what about if you need help? If you have anxiety, if you have a stress overload, or you have stress-borne insomnia or something like that, undoubtedly you don't need to get into any specifics about that, but like I am curious about what you might do to not just try to shoulder everything that there is.
That's a really good question. And I've been convicted of this is a problem for me, and I don't have a solution in place, but yeah, I'll run down a rabbit hole, and just out of sheer desire to like figure it out or like solve it, I will chase that long tail where time continues, you continue to invest time, but like the increment of value you're gaining is like marginal. And then it just becomes like a total nothing burger because like you figure it out a month later, but you wasted a month trying to chase it. And like, and so, yeah, I say that there's a guy I go to church with, His name's Jay Brown. I really have a lot of respect for him. I've met him just in person once, but I have a tremendous amount of respect. He's the CEO of David Weekley Homes. He's an outspoken believer in Christian, and he lives a God first, family first life, and like runs this incredibly huge home building company as a CEO. He talked, I was in a crowd, he was talking, and he was like, I encouraged my kids to quit. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I kind of like almost checked out. I was like, man, I almost lost respect for this guy. Like, I can't believe I misunderstood him. And the point that he went on to make that I think is in the same thing of what you're saying and has been hard for me to swallow because it's challenged my traditional thinking is like, hey, if you get on the wrong train, like there is no like finishing the race. Like if you wait till the end of the line to get off instead of like at the first exit, the next exit, once you realize you're at the wrong train, like you're only hurting yourself. And so he talked about practically like what does that look like for his kids. Well, like we're not going to quit mid-season in a sport. We'll think about it, pray about it. But like if you hate swimming, and I forget what even sport he said, but like, and you don't want to do swimming again next year, like I'm not going to make you do it. But like the best time to get off the wrong train is at the next stop. And prior to that, my approach was like, well, I'm just going to ride to the end of the train. Like I can make the train the right train, which is you know, silly and also prideful. And so yeah, I don't. I actually think I'm bad at that, and I've been convicted that I need to get better at it. Don't know if I have any answers or wise things to share, but it is a known issue of mine.
Yeah, that's a really good story. I will probably be retelling in the near future. That's a good one. And it makes so much sense. Maybe the lesson is not just to quit, but how and when. So, which probably is valuable. And man, I could write pages about that. But yeah, just like the versions of that in my life. But let's bring it home here. How do you want people to interact? Is this something where just go check out texasslabguys.com? We'll link it in the description. Anything else? You want people to use Pronto Pay or anything?
Man, yeah, gosh, concrete world, you know, folks who want to talk concrete, want to talk rock, I'm always down. You know, how do we take this model and expand it nationally? We've had a number of folks reach out, you being one of them, and so excited to continue and iterate with you and ideate, and maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, but at the end of the day, I just love meeting like-minded folks who like building things. And so if you're a builder, texasslabguys.com, you can fill out the form, or you can text the company number that goes to our CRM. And so we have automation set up that you'll receive, but I read every text that we get, every email that we get, every form that we get, and I think that's how you and I originally got together. And so, yeah, I invite anybody to reach out, you know, through those channels or mediums, and to the degree I can be helpful, I'm happy to. But John, this has been such a treat, man. I've enjoyed getting to know you better, and I think what you're building is super cool. And as I get to know you better, it's fun to see your personality a little bit more, and there's a healthy amount of like love to have fun, but also, you know, let's accomplish something great. And I think that you know, a lot of people set too small of goals. And so first time you and I talked, you literally were like, okay, so hear me out. This is going to sound crazy, but like, what if there was a national franchising model, and instead of just going in like the one market, you go in like 50 markets? Like, wouldn't that be so crazy? And I'm just like, you are crazy, but like, yes, that would be awesome. And so I appreciate the vision, how you think big, and you're not afraid to communicate that to somebody you don't even know. And so at the time, but it's been
thank you.
Man. I've loved it.
Thank you for the great compliment. I love the way your brain works, and I can't wait to sort of see it in different avenues. I'm really excited about the WIOA. I'm excited about it in the WIOA field. Is it WIOA?
Yeah.
See what you could do with that, because that I think is a worthy cause. So good work, and thanks for the conversation. All in the recording
Awesome, man.
now.